Now I know what some of you are thinking. But I live in a duty to inform state. I have to tell the officer about my gun. And you're right. Some states do have laws that require you to disclose if you're carrying a firearm. But here's the key. Duty to inform does not mean duty to explain. It does not mean you have to answer follow-up questions. It does not mean you have to give your life story. In a duty to inform state, you can say something like this. Officer, I'm required to inform you that I'm carrying a firearm and I have a valid permit. I prefer not to answer any further questions. That's it. You've met your legal obligation. You've been respectful. And you've set a boundary. You're not being difficult. You're being smart. Let's talk about what cooperation actually means. Cooperation means following lawful commands. If the officer tells you to keep your hands on the wheel, you do it. If the officer asks for your license and registration, you provide it. If the officer asks you to step out of the vehicle, you step out. That's cooperation. But cooperation does not mean answering questions. Questions are different from commands. You have the right to decline, and you should. Because here's the thing, officers are trained to ask questions. It's part of their job. They're looking for inconsistencies. They're building a narrative. They're gathering evidence. And most of the time, they're just doing their job well. But that doesn't mean you have to help them build a case. Even if there's no case to build. Even if you're completely innocent. Because innocence doesn't protect you from your own words. Think about how stress affects you. When you're nervous, you talk faster. You forget things. You stumble over words. You say things you don't mean. You try to fill silence because silence feels awkward. All of that is normal. But none of that helps you. In fact, it hurts you. Because the officer doesn't know you. The officer doesn't know that you're just nervous. The officer is listening for clues, and your nervousness might look like guilt. Your rambling might sound like lying. Your attempt to be friendly might come across as suspicious. It's not fair, but it's reality. And the only way to protect yourself from that reality is to say less. Not nothing, just less. Here's another critical point. The roadside is not a courtroom. You don't have to prove your innocence on the side of the road. You don't have to make the officer believe you. You don't have to win an argument. In fact, you can't. Because anything you say to prove your innocence can be twisted later. But anything you say that sounds bad will definitely be used. It's a losing game. The only way to win is not to play. Stay calm, be polite, follow lawful orders, and keep your mouth shut. If there's an issue, it gets sorted out later, with a lawyer, in a controlled environment, where you have time to think and someone to advise you. Let's address another concern. Won't staying silent make me look guilty? No, it won't, or at least it shouldn't. Exercising your rights is not evidence of guilt. Courts have said this over and over. Your refusal to answer questions cannot be used as proof that you did something wrong. Now, will some officers interpret it that way in the moment? Maybe, but that's their problem, not yours. You're not there to manage their feelings. You're there to protect your future. And if an officer gets upset because you won't answer questions, that's actually a red flag. It means they were relying on your words to build their case. Which means staying silent was exactly the right move. Now let's get into the practical side of this. How do you actually do it? How do you stay calm and quiet when your heart is pounding and you just want the whole thing to be over? Here's the technique. First, control your breathing. Take slow, deep breaths. This calms your nervous system and helps you think clearly. Second, keep your hands visible. Put them on the steering wheel and leave them there unless you're instructed otherwise. This shows the officer you're not a threat. Third, use short, polite sentences. Good evening, officer. Here's my license. I prefer not to answer questions. That's it. No explanations, no stories. Just short, calm responses. Fourth, if the officer keeps pushing, stay consistent. I understand, but I'm not answering questions. Repeat it as many times as necessary. Don't get emotional. Don't argue. Just stay firm. You've made it halfway through, and if this is making sense to you, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you know someone who carries, share this video with them. It might be the most important thing they watch this year. Seriously, this stuff matters. Let's continue. Here's what a lot of gun owners don't realize. The Second Amendment and the Fifth Amendment have to work together. You have the right to own a firearm. You have the right to carry it legally, but you also have the right to remain silent about it. These rights don't conflict. They support each other. And if you care about protecting your gun rights, you need to care just as much about protecting your right to silence, because losing one can cost you the other. A careless statement during a traffic stop can lead to a charge. A charge can lead to a conviction, and a conviction can strip you of your Second Amendment rights forever. That's not an exaggeration. That's the law. Let's look at some common mistakes gun owners make. Mistake number 1. Volunteering information. Well, the officer didn't ask about your gun, but you mention it anyway because you think it's the right thing to do. Bad idea. If you're not in a duty to inform state, there's no reason to bring it up. Mistake number 2. Explaining the law to the officer. You start quoting statutes and permit rules, trying to prove you know what you're doing. This almost always backfires. It sounds arrogant. It makes the officer defensive, and it gives them more to question. Mistake number 3, consenting to a search. The officer asks if they can search your car. You say yes because you think refusing looks suspicious. But here's the truth. If the officer had legal grounds to search, they wouldn't ask permission. When they ask, it means they need your consent. Don't give it. Politely say no. I don't consent to searches. Another big mistake. Trying to build rapport by talking about guns. You mention your favorite range, your collection, your training. You think this will make the officer see you as a responsible gun owner. But all you're doing is giving them more information to write down, more details that could be misinterpreted, more chances to say something wrong. Just stop. The officer is not your buddy. This is not a casual conversation. This is a legal encounter. Treat it that way. Now here's something that might surprise you. Even if you do everything right, the officer might still detain you. They might still take your firearm temporarily. They might still write you a ticket. And that's okay. Because your goal is not to avoid all inconvenience. Your goal is to avoid giving them evidence to use against you in court. You can fight a ticket. You can challenge a detention, but you can't take back your words. Once they're in the report, they're permanent. So take the ticket if you have to. Let them secure the firearm if that's their procedure. Stay calm, stay silent, and deal with it later through proper legal channels. Let's talk about tone for a second. The way you say things matters almost as much as what you say. If you say, "I'm not answering questions," in an aggressive or sarcastic tone, you're going to escalate the situation. But if you say, "I prefer not to answer questions, officer," in a calm, respectful tone, it lands completely differently. You're setting a boundary, but you're doing it with respect. You're not challenging the officer's authority. You're just protecting your rights. There's a big difference. Practice this at home if you need to. Say it out loud a few times. Get comfortable with the words so that when the moment comes, they come out smooth and calm. Here's another real scenario. Officer asks where you're coming from. Seems like a harmless question, right? Wrong. If you say you're coming from the gun range, now the officer knows you were just handling firearms. If you say you're coming from a bar, now they're thinking about DUI. If you say you're coming from a friend's house and they find something illegal later, your friend becomes part of the investigation. Every single piece of information you give opens a new door, and you don't know which door leads to trouble. So the safest answer is no answer. I prefer not to say, officer. It feels awkward, but it works. Let's address one more thing. What if the officer says, "If you have nothing to hide, you should have no problem answering"? This is a psychological tactic. It's designed to make you feel like silence equals guilt. Don't fall for it. You can respond with something like, "I respect your job, officer, but I'm exercising my right to remain silent." You're not being rude. You're not accusing them of anything. You're just standing firm. And legally, you're absolutely in the right. The burden of proof is on the state, not on you. You don't have to prove innocence. They have to prove guilt. And they can't do that without evidence. Don't give them evidence. All right, we're getting close to the end here. If this video has opened your eyes, do me a huge favor. Like it. Subscribe to the channel. And share it with your friends, especially anyone who carries. And this is the kind of information that doesn't get taught in concealed carry classes, but it should. Because it's just as important as knowing how to shoot. So let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. If you're a gun owner, you live in a world where the rules are different for you. Fair or not, that's reality. A mistake that might get someone else a warning could get you arrested. A statement that seems innocent could cost you your rights. You have to be smarter. You have to be more careful. And that starts with understanding that silence is not suspicious. Silence is smart. Silence is your shield. Use it. When you get pulled over, remember these key points. Stay calm. Keep your hands visible. Be polite. Follow lawful commands. If you're in a duty to inform state, inform briefly and clearly. Then stop talking. If the officer asks questions, use the 5-word answer. I prefer not to answer. If they push, stay consistent. Don't explain, don't justify, don't argue. Just repeat your boundary. And if things escalate, comply with lawful orders, but continue to decline answering questions. You can sort everything out later with a lawyer. Your job in that moment is to get through the encounter without giving away your rights or your freedom. Remember, this is not about being anti-police. This is about being pro-yourself. You can respect law enforcement and still protect your rights. Those two things are not in conflict. In fact, officers who truly understand the law will respect you more for knowing your rights and exercising them properly. The ones who get upset are usually the ones who are depending on your ignorance. And those are exactly the situations where silence protects you the most. One last thing. Practice this. Seriously. Sit in your car and imagine the scenario. Practice keeping your hands on the wheel. Practice saying the 5-word answer out loud. Practice staying calm. Because when it actually happens, your brain is going to be flooded with adrenaline. Your instinct is going to be to talk, to explain, to make it better. But if you've practiced staying silent, you'll have a much better chance of actually doing it when it counts. This is not paranoia, this is preparation. And preparation is what separates people who protect their rights from people who accidentally give them away. The bottom line is this: your words are evidence, every single one. And in a traffic stop, you're under stress, which means you're more likely to say something you don't mean or something that gets misunderstood. The safest path is the simplest path. Be polite, be respectful, follow lawful commands, but do not answer questions. Exercise your right to remain silent. It's not rude, it's not suspicious. It's smart, and it could save your freedom, your rights, and your future. If police ask any weapons, you now know the 5-word answer. I prefer not to answer. Use it, protect yourself, and stay safe out there. Before you go, one more time, like this video if it helped. Subscribe for more content that protects your rights, and share it with anyone who needs to hear this message. Thanks for watching. Stay smart, stay safe, and remember, silence is strength.